This week is a really good week if you're an Ableton user. As you know, we've got the Ableton Push 3 coming out, but honestly, just for everyone, because we got Ableton 11.3, and I think this is one of the best free updates that we've had from Ableton in a really long time, and I feel like it's kind of flying under the radar, so let me go ahead and show you why. So something that I've been seeing going around like in Push 3 reviews is they're talking about how good the auto warp is in Push 3, and I kind of feel like it flew under the radar just a little bit that this is actually included in Ableton Live now, the new auto warp. So for the first time in a very long time, I actually went over to warp settings and turned on auto warp long samples. And so the way that I wanted to test this was with like a cappella or like to remix a song. So let me go ahead and just kind of show you how good this is now. Hopefully I don't get this video taken down because I'm using an actual song. So fingers crossed, but I'm gonna drop that in here, and it just automatically warped it. And yeah, we know like Ableton was able to do that before, but yeah, you can already see that they're not just placing warp markers all over the place. This is not the BPM of the song. I don't know what the original BPM is, but I can tell you it's not 115. I'm going to pitch this down. Maybe that'll help in not getting demonetized, but I just want you to listen to the click and just hear how in time this is without having to do anything. And then I'll even skip like later in the song. So because of that, making remixes, or really, I mean, there's a lot of things that this is gonna be helpful with. Making remixes is one of them, especially for people who are starting out and don't really know how to use Warp too well. This is a pretty big game changer. I mean, Warp was already like leagues above pretty much everything as far as other DAWs go, as far as audio manipulation goes. But now with this auto warp, you don't even have to worry about like going in and placing warp markers on your own or trying to do some of the workarounds. You can actually just drag in a song or an acapella or a sample, and it automatically warps it to whatever BPM you're set at. I've tried it with a few different things, and it's been really spot on. And it allowed me to make this remix pretty quick, actually. It really sped up my workflow. And like I said, I'm someone who's had auto warp off for like, I don't know, 5 years. I've had it off for quite a long time. And this update is the first time I've turned it back on. Every time I've got a new computer, one of the first things I did when I installed Ableton is turn off auto warp. And this update pretty much fixed all of the issues I had with auto warp. Another great new thing that was added, and again, to all Ableton 11 users, is this new synth, and I think Intro gets it too, which is pretty crazy because this is actually a really cool synth. I'm not going to go too in depth with it, but it's this one called Drift, and the main point of this is that it's really like MPE enabled, and we'll get into that later, but it's honestly just a pretty good sounding synth. So for this remix, I'll go ahead and just play this little bit here. So in my opinion, this is actually pretty much one of my favorite Ableton synths now. It's really simple. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a really simple synth, but a lot of times I like using simple synths and just adding effects on top of it like I did here. So yeah, I just made that sound in, I don't know, like 3 or 4 minutes, just clicking around. I've never used the synth before, but it's pretty intuitive. It's not too complicated, and I was able to make this sound. So already this is pretty high up my list with Ableton synths, and the great thing is that everyone who has Live 11 gets it. It doesn't matter which version you have, and I think that's huge because before, like the lower versions of Ableton didn't really come with any good synths in my opinion, and so for everyone to have Drift now, this is a pretty big difference. And I was actually clicking through the presets as well, and there's actually some really good presets this time around. Typically, again, I think Ableton has not been too great with presets, but I think they've done a lot better with Drift, so I'm pretty excited about that as well. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about with this update is that they've added more MPE compatible devices. So before there was like Simpler, and there was Wavetable, and there was a few that were MPE enabled, and the thing about this is you might say, oh, I don't have an MPE MIDI controller. Well, most of us don't. But where this comes into play is the note expression. And I made a video how to do pitch bend in like 3 different ways in Ableton. And for some reason, that one kind of took off more than some of my other videos. And I'm constantly getting comments on that video asking me, why is the note expression not working? Well, and the reason for that is because if you don't have an MPE enabled synth, or whether you're using like sampler or any of that stuff, if it's not MPE enabled, it's not going to work. And so basically, the Ableton has updated it and made it so that more of their devices support MPE. So basically, the delay now supports MPE, which that's going to be more for if you have actually an MPE MIDI controller or something that supports expression. But it also analog, collision, electric, and tension all support MPE now. So you can do those weird pitch bends with the note expression in the piano roll. And this is pretty big because, I know there's a lot of people that wanted this function added to more parts of Ableton because it was pretty selective before on what you could and couldn't use. So basically just they updated it and they added more MPE to more devices. And I think this is great because I really think that MPE, as far as like expression goes, especially with like an MPE MIDI controller, it's kind of the future. And I think that Ableton is really ahead of some of the other DAWs on that. So for them to go in and add MPE to more devices, as well as add a new device that's kind of about MPE, a lot of it's about MPE, I think that was pretty good. And obviously, the big reason they did that is because they just launched the Push 3, which supports MPE. And so, yeah, they're kind of just heading in that direction. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of just give a shout out to this update. I know the Push 3 is new and exciting, but if you're not getting the Push 3, like I'm not, you at least got a really good update out of this. So if you have any questions about anything in this video or just anything in Ableton in general, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. But other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one.
I've been praying, life can be draining,